to you is a thumbs up. If it was confusing to you, a thumbs down. So of those who received it, was it helpful? Thumbs up. Confusing, thumbs down. I'm not sure. We had people emailing us that said, "What is the DMI?" So we know it didn't go to all the correct people. So that might be something that we get cleared up if you disassociate people that shouldn't be associated with the DMI. We have experts in the room, and so we're going to identify experts as well as novices today. And I want you to look around, so if you're not sitting by an expert, you can choose to move. I would like you to raise a number of fingers that represent the number of times you've completed the DMI. If this is your first time, it's going to be a fist. If this is your millionth time, you're going to have a flashing palm. Okay.
How many times?
Flashing palm.
Okay, our Will's in trouble.
Okay, look around. If you like to locate the nearest expert close to you, they should have the flashing palm going, indicating multiple times. So we have lots of experts in the room as well as lots of novices. It's great to see so many people here. I'd like you to now glance through this page. I'm going to give you 20 seconds just to look it over, and then I'm going to ask you a question about it. People are looking over this cheat sheet, ready for a question. Okay, my question to you is, what do you notice on this page that might be helpful to you when you leave today and complete the rest of the DMI?
Everything.
Steve?
I like where it says where the uploads are, so you're not questioning, do I need an upload there, do I not need an upload there?
I'm glad you noticed that. Red means either notice this or it means an upload required. So the indicator of the item is in red as well as the upload notification is red. You'll notice there aren't that many uploads this year. Okay. Cycle 3 is over. Like I said in the new Title I Directors meeting, whew, that was a long cycle. Parent-family engagement policies have been updated for the most part, so that we won't have to worry about. We're on to cycle 4 of 4 cycles. Who else noticed something that might be useful when you leave here today? Katina?
Oh, this is great. Just like looking at it going, oh, it tells me the name and it tells me what it is. And that's the confusing part.
Okay, so we have LEA report card, which Darren talked about extensively this morning. It's going to be item number 1 in the annual report, and it kind of gives you an overview or any change there. I'll talk more about the report card when we get to that. Okay, there are also several sections. The first section, besides the website, is problem prevention. I went over this last year, and we had few problems. So 3 things to remember. You've got to answer all the criteria questions, either yes or no. You can't leave any of them none. And I think accidentally I fixed that weird configuration where you had yes, no, and then below it you had none, so you could not tell what your answers were. I hope that's fixed, so you'll see today whether it is or not.
That would be nice, because we used to ask them to fix it, and they said they couldn't.
Somebody, yeah, by accident I fixed it. And the next one is to click save after everything. If you don't click save in the DMI, it doesn't remember it for you. And the last one, you go to submit, you click on submit in the upper left-hand corner after you've done all the items, you've marked those. You don't just click it once. I had several people who said, I swear I submitted that. What they did is they clicked submit and then they logged out. Submit and then confirm. It's not intuitive, that DMI. Okay, so criteria questions. So I'm gonna ask Renee to get out of this just overview and go to the DMI for our district. Renee and I have a district. She's going to type in our LEA name, so it saves her some time. Our LEA name is USBE District. And then when she scrolls down, we've narrowed it down so it's easy to find. So there are 2 instruments that you need to complete each year. For those of you who have an on-site visit scheduled, there is no on-site tool anymore. I took that out because that information has already been sent out to you, what you need to submit. So we're going to start with the Title I, Cycle 4. And this is going to be so easy, but I really do want you to take it seriously that these are assurances. So our 2 questions are, do you have an approved school-wide program in your LEA? And the other one is, do you have approved targeted assistance? The reason approved is in there is because there are some LEAs that have, say, 50% of the students experiencing poverty, and they want to go from targeted assist to school-wide. They have to submit an application and be approved. Otherwise, they're not an approved school-wide. They want to be a school-wide school. They qualify to because they have a high enough percentage, but they're not quite there yet. So if it's approved, if last year you were a school-wide school, you click yes. And if you have targeted assistance programs, you would click yes. There are some districts that have both. Most districts have just one or the other. Most charter schools are targeted assist. We do have some charters that are school-wide. So I've asked Renee to mark this no for school-wide and yes for targeted because I want to spend time in annual core going over all the things the district's going to have to do. So I want to spend the time in cycle 4 going over what mostly charters are going to have to do. If that's a way to balance it out, save time. But mostly cycle 4 is just about your school plans. And I'm not going to have you upload anything. As you can tell, there's no red in cycle 4. But you're going to read through each of those indicators and make sure your school plan or plans meet these requirements. Jason, did you have a question? Okay. Oh, Steve did, sorry.
You know, I was hoping it's not too far off topic. If we have a targeted assistance this year and they qualify, but we have to go through 1 year of targeted assistance first, right? And then there's an application that we fill out after that. Or can we just, there's a process.
In a way, your targeted assistance program is going to have to meet the requirements of a school-wide school, but you don't mark it in the DMI. They have to do a needs assessment, so that's going to take the year. So you can't. So you're doing these things simultaneously, filling out the DMI for targeted assistance for them, but also looking at what it takes to become a school-wide school. So there's an application form that Becky Donaldson created on the website that you'll be able to load.
So we should probably be going through that now.
Yes.
Start it now.
Yes.
I'll ask that question. I've got to the end of the year and
Wanted to be.
Because
I just like to go in a year and if it works well.
return on school hours.
Are you already on annual core?
Oh, no, I'm listening.
She's just moving on.
I'm not talking about the annual core. She's a go-getter. Okay. So what do we need to do before we move on? Say.
You wanted to do it this year.
And we do a lot of waiting for the DMI. As soon as the DMI saves these criteria questions, we're going to get some other tabs up
I
here.
will write a note.
If you don't get those other tabs, then you haven't answered the criteria questions correctly. You've probably left none answered.
Yes.
Okay, so look at our tabs now. We have criteria questions, but now we have our items. We have 6 items that we need to answer as a targeted assistance LEA. We also have 6 if you're school-wide, if you have school-wide schools. There's a tab for documents. There's also a tab for status history. That's going to be the same on all of it. And there are, on some, there's a resource tab, which is really important to pay attention to because that will help you out. Okay, so we're going to open up the windows. We're going to expand all because some people don't answer all the items, address all the items because they haven't expanded all the windows. So once we do that, we see our 6 targeted assistance questions. So starting with item 18. You have kind of an introduction to what the indicator is. Targeted assistance schools are different from school-wide because they have to create criteria. It needs to be multiple and objective criteria that the school uses to identify the students that are failing or most at risk for failing. You can't just have teacher in a 3rd grade say, oh man, get this kid out of my class and have them qualify. There have to be criteria. So this is asking you to verify, are there clear objective criteria for identifying students? The students with the greatest academic need are identified, and then there is fluidity in the program. They're not just stuck there for the entire year because that program is being revisited and revised. The list is being revisited and revised. So we need to change our status. We cannot leave it in progress because then we'll never get the submit button at the end. So when Renee clicks on this edit button and pulls down the click down menu, we have 4 options. Meets requirements, does not meet requirements, and not monitored. You almost never will use not monitored, but I will give you 2 situations today that you might use it. So we're going to say, yes, we do have that list of criteria that we use. We're going to say it meets requirements. And then we're going to save it. Any questions while we're waiting for that to save? Okay, this might seem like we're going very slowly, but there are some people who will be able to complete cycle 4 right now.
One quick question. As I'm going through, regardless if it's TA, target assistant or school-wide, I'm marking yet meets requirements. Now, I have evidence, I could give examples, but it says nothing is required, so we don't need to upload,
Right.
correct? Okay.
Thanks for asking that question because in 2 years, when we come around to cycle 2, that will be another opportunity where you will have done this, you will know, we need to make sure we're doing that I will ask you to upload examples of school-wide plans and targeted assist. So this is kind of like a wake up, are you doing this? I wish we would have had that for parent-family engagement. Okay, so on our next one, it's called, what's this indicator called? Identification, oh, this is the same one. Oh, it's because we haven't gone to the next item. Because we saved it, now we go to the next item. If I'm standing in anybody's way, let me know. Spinning. So services provided. Now I actually cut and paste from ESSA because I think in this instance, ESSA gives some really good ideas to targeted assistance LEAs who might not have thought about them. Ways that you can use your Title I funds. Okay, so down here is where you need to pay attention to, are we meeting, we're assuring that we're doing these. Does the evidence indicate identified students receive services including resources to help them meet challenging state academic standards? Are evidence-based methods and instructional strategies used to strengthen the program? We use all 4 tiers of evidence-based when it comes to Title I. When schools go into improvement or turnaround, they have to use the top 3 levels of evidence. So this is more lenient. So one of the handouts Becky included in the folder had evidence-based practices. I know the literacy program, Teaching and Learning, has a list of evidence-based resources. If you haven't found that yet and you email me, I can do that. Okay, and then very importantly, the removal of identified students from regular classrooms is minimized. I know some schools have a protocol where students do not miss their core classes for any reason. Never miss. Okay, so we're going to assure that we've done this. We're going to change it so it's not in progress still. We meet requirement and then we save and go on. Do you want me to go this speed or should I speed up? Brett, thank you for the honest answer. Okay, so we'll go on. 20, family engagement, targeted assist, because you have specific parents of those targeted assistants, students that have been identified for services, and that could be changing. You have to make sure that you are including parents, making a concerted effort to engage them in that educational process. So, yeah, Brett?
So we say meets requirements because we've done that and we've done multiple different things. How do we, we're still struggling getting the response we want. But it's, from our point right now, not a lack of trying, we might not have come up with the right accommodation or intervention to get our parents there. That still meets the requirement, correct?
Yes, right. And then that goes back to that sticky thing that almost no LEAs had in their policy was an evaluation identifying barriers for parent engagement. And that doesn't have to be parents showing up at the school, right? It could be lots of different, it can take on lots of different practices, looks.
The Google form sent out to all the parents to get their.
What did you have on there? Oh, the barriers, identifying barriers. Did you get some good information?
Some.
Did you?
That response.
I think it's an ongoing struggle, and there's no right answer for any one LEA. Works at your LEA is not going to.
If we're still right on that bubble between school-wide and targeted, should we fill it out for targeted first? Because school-wide is easier to fix, if you will.
I wouldn't want you to do the DMI twice. So I know Becky had in the packet the draft form of that application.
Right.
Like I would actually be on top of that and making sure that if you can.
Well, we won't know the numbers until after the deadline on the 19th.
Well, we used last year's October 1 counts.
Choose that one.
Yeah, that's what we use to identify whether school-wide or targeted assist. And if you want to apply for a waiver, then that's something that I would suggest you get in contact with Becky on.
Sorry, one other question. So if we were right on that border and we did a waiver last year,
You were grandfathered in for 1 year automatically, yes.
so at this point, if we're still right on that boundary, we should do targeted assistance or school-wide?
Well, if you want a real concrete answer right now, targeted assist, and then I guess you have until December 1st to complete the DMI. So hopefully you have some kind of word back from Becky, whether it's okay. So we're going on, we are on.
I would probably.
Oh. I did have an LEA last year put down does not meet requirements on several items, which I really appreciated. And in the comment box, because there's an LEA comment box, which some of you fill out religiously, and I appreciate that because it gives me insight. And some people just ignore it because it's some extra work that you don't have time for. So in the box, she put down, we have not done the equipment log, but this is our timeline. We're going around to all the schools. We're cataloging all the equipment for Title I. So she had in there a plan. And that is so nice. It's fine to put does not meet requirements and to put a plan in there. Okay, going on, we have program coordination. This is what that section of homeless, and school improvement, and Title III was all about today. So as much as you can coordinate programs, the better. Some of you may not, that may not apply to you, so on this one, you could put down not monitored for your LEA. But if you're a district, most likely you better be coordinating those programs. So Renee's doing an example of not monitored, saving that. We are on the coordination with regular education. That should be ongoing, right? PLC meetings. Everybody should know what interventions are happening with which students and what the progress is. Oh, it's the next one. Oh, sorry. There's one more, one last one. And professional development. For targeted assistance, you need to provide professional development only to the people that work with the students that have been identified. Remember, those targeted funds are just for identified students. It can be a tier 1 teacher who has a student on the list in their class. That's fine. Improving tier 1 instruction for those teachers with students that have been identified is probably one of the best uses of targeted assistance funds. We weren't going to say that.
So we can go to end.
Well,
Techniques rules.
oh, that's okay, because we already saved it. So notice we have only previous items, we don't have next items. That means we're done, hopefully. So we're gonna go, I'm gonna have Renee click on cycle 4 just to give us a big picture overview so we can look for any problems that might have happened. And as we scroll down, we see all of our items again, and we can say 5 of 6 are completed. Uh-oh. Meets requirements, oh, good. Let's go up. I don't know how you did that. Is that scrolled up all the way? Where is our submit button?
Change status to submit is the bottom left, but I don't think you can because you only have 5 or 6 done. So you need to go back to that one that says.
Nicely done. We're trying to fool you. This is the panic that many. This is the panic
That's
that
so
many.
Well done.
Thanks, Renee. Okay, and then hopefully we have the submit button, because if we don't, I don't know how to solve this one. Let's go to our whole cycle 4 overview. I think we're sure we know what's going on there. Do we have a submit button? Yep.
Yeah.
Change status to submitted. And wait. Yeah, it's a great multitasking.
Takes a little while.
Okay, now there's red, but look how the submit button has gone down lower. So if you haven't paid attention, you really don't notice it. So we always click submit twice. Okay, that's cycle 4. Shirley?
Sorry, Debbie missed it. I'm sure it's my fault, but on 21, so are you saying that that could be not monitored because of maybe there's not funds to braid in?
Yeah, if you're not braiding funds, if you're not doing that as a targeted assistance program.
Okay.
But most programs are doing it.
Okay. But is that one of the 2 not monitored that you talked about that you're, okay, very good. Thank you.
Other cycle 4 questions? Easy. So school-wide is going to be kind of what Brett was asking about. School-wide, you're going to assure you do a needs assessment. You're going to assure that you evaluate that plan. You're going to assure that parents and other stakeholders are involved in writing them. It's the same thing that it's always been. Yeah, I don't think there are any tricks in that. So we're ready to go on to our next tool. So we go back out to the LEA overview and click on annual core items. It's called annual core because every year we do the same ones. So as you look over annual core on the handout, you'll see that there'll only be one upload for charters for programmatic. That's my part. There'll be more for Sandy and Tammy's part. And for districts with private schools, there'll be more. So we're going to answer as if we're a district on this one. Okay, are you a charter serving a single site? No. Are you a charter with more than one site? No. Are you a district not a charter? Yes. Did you consult with any private schools regarding services for Title I? Yes. We're going to answer all yet. We're going to do the most possibilities. Do you provide services? Once you consult, doesn't mean you're going to provide services. They may choose not to because when they find out they only have $130 to use for services. So yes, we provide services. Do we have over $500,000? Yes, we do. And do we have a school that's been identified for CSI, Comprehensive Support and Improvement? Yes, we're going to say yes. If you don't, answer no.
Would you include turnaround as CSI?
No, because turnaround is state, and this is only dealing with federal. Great question, Karen. And then we're going to say we do have at least one TSI school. So that gets to your question, right? Yes. Okay, do we answer all the questions? That's one thing to check on. None have been left none, and you can see the format is much better than it was previously. Okay, so we're going to save. We're just waiting for it. Yeah, it's spinning.
Val?
Yeah.
If we have a private school that we're communicating back and forth with, but the decision hasn't been made yet, can we put no for now and then go back and change it?
They haven't decided if they want to consult?
Well, we've consulted, we just haven't come to an agreement yet.
Oh.
And had a best offer.
And again, this isn't due until December 1st. I know some people love to get it done. So I should. If you haven't heard back from them, I would probably hold off on this because you're going to need to upload documentation.
Okay.
But just, it'll almost be done. You just have to go back and up. Okay, what did Renee do last time that helped her know which items she needed to address? Does anybody remember? Yeah, expand all. And it looks like we're gonna, how many do we have? Does it give us a total up here? We have 22 items. Charter schools that don't have schools in improvement will have 12 at the minimum. So it goes from 12 to 22. So the first item is the LEA Accountability Report card. For those of you who were here this morning, Darren gave the latest information for us, which is better than the information I had when I created this document. So if you go to the annual core indicators, number 1, I did have the October 3rd board meeting correct, so they'll review that information there, and then they will make a determination whether the data are valid or not. And then scheduled to publish school report card by December 1st. The clarification Darren made was that will remain private until January. So any schools that want to submit, what did he call it? Appeal. That they would have time to do that without the public knowing what those data were. So I'm going to say that this would be another one that some of you may choose to mark not monitored. This has 2 options. You could mark it not monitored just because of the whole process that the RISE test has gone through. You might mark it meets requirements if you intend, and everybody should be doing this anyway, when you get those report cards, because it sounds like it's going to happen, then you're gonna send them out like you always do. So if you have all intention of doing this, you could say meets requirements. You're just assuring in this document, in the DMI, that you'll do that. So it's whatever you feel most comfortable with. You still have to do it when they're available, but they won't be available by the time the DMI is due. Questions on that? Save that one, requirements or not monitored. And we go on to the LEA plan. Difference this year, LEA plan is found in the Utah grants. It's not the same thing that was in UCA. Becky talked about it this morning a little bit. It's gonna be work intensive the first time you do it. I don't think it would be fun to do. But once you do it, you only have to make minor tweaks if you make changes. It's not like the UCA where every year you were expected to put in the needs assessment from the district and a different plan. But that's still anticipated that you're doing that all along. But this plan is just, this is our ESSA plan. So as soon as Utah Grants is open, and I actually told Lisa from Severe wrong information. I went on the website to see if I could find it, because if you'll remember, I told her that it was on the website. I couldn't find it, so I emailed her a copy of it. I'll get Becky to get it on our website so it's there, but if you want a copy now, just email me and let me know. So LEA plan, hope Utah Grants is functioning and you'll be able to complete that. So meets requirements. Again, that's something that you're gonna have to hold off on unless you will assure that as soon as Utah Grants is done, you can just go ahead and promise that now.
Okay. And isn't that deadline November 1st?
The Utah Grants
if it
is,
cooperates with
yes,
us.
exactly. If for some reason we don't get acceptable workarounds, then we would have to extend that deadline. But as of right now, it's still November 1st. Federal funds in eligible schools. Are Title I funds only used in Title I eligible schools? Again, this is assurance. Yes, obviously charters aren't going to get this one populated based on their questions. Go quickly through them. Yeah. The next one on our list of new or changed is 28, the CSI plan. It will look different. It just goes through the components that are required of a CSI plan. If you answered no to CSI plan, you won't see it. TSI plan also it lists out specifics of what a TSI plan has to include. And it again makes districts assure, or charter LEAs assure, that you are monitoring that plan, because the state does not monitor the TSI plans.
Providing a template for the TSI plan depending on the indicator, what does that look like? Because when you talk about TSI plan, we've been wondering what that is or what that looks like.
If it exists, and that, because it's an LEA responsibility, not a state responsibility. Right. I don't know that Max and Leslie have created anything like that or have any recommendations.
What they've shared with us is that it is a district responsibility. So what is each district's requirement, because it is a board approved process. And now because of TSSA, all school plans have to be approved by your Board of Education. So it's whatever template or process you're using for your school plan that include TSI.
Okay.
Yeah, so every school district is a little different.
Yeah.
It's just whatever was your expectation and what your Board of Education approved for each of your schools.
When we get to that indicator, then I'll show you what those are, but they would just be items that you would take and infuse into whatever plan you came up with. So another question just for multiple site charters and districts is the measure of poverty. You have to use the same measure of poverty for all the schools. So if you use free for this school but free and reduced for this school, that's not consistent. So you have to use the same. So if you meet the requirements, schools are appropriately ranked in Utah Grants Management System. Again, that's where we ran into huge problems. So you would assure that that's happening. Again, you can't access that. The low income data are based on the same source. Okay, so we meet, you already marked that, meets requirements, okay. And we're at homeless set aside. So those of you who were here when Jeff Ojeda was talking about the homeless set aside, the minimum amount is the PPA. So when you go through the whole Utah grants, it's going to be hard to compare about doing the Utah grants first.
It really is.
But you just, again, this is assurances. So if you promise to do it, yeah.
Gotta get the Utah grants done by the first.
It's the homeless.
Okay. The per pupil allocation, that's what you're gonna figure out when you go through the Utah grants that used to be the UCA. But if you assure that at least that minimum per pupil allocation is set aside, then you're good. Now, if you had homeless students living in a homeless situation last year, Jeff said this was something new I didn't know about. You take last year's numbers and multiply, say you had 10, multiply 10 by the PPA, and that would be the minimum set aside.
That's what I thought I heard him say.
The end of the year.
That's kind of conflicting though. Are we sure that's the way we're supposed to do it?
Cal, what's that?
I've just heard a couple things. I also had understood that you could set it with what you feel like you need, that you did not have to go through
Okay.
doing that
I think
process.
that has been my understanding. And then in a situation where a district or a charter has even more students living in a homeless situation this school year than last school year, how is that funded, right? So if you have questions, please direct them to Jeff Ojeda. Missy?
Well, we just were saying, I mean, we all have different PPAs.
Right.
So do you end up have to look up to see what their home school would have been and use the PPA that you would have used for that school? Or how do you come up with an average? Do you take the highest? Do you take the lowest? What?
Oh, no, it's not. Depends on the rate.
But you have don't you get a common PPA?
Before you
start divvying.
Right.
Adjust
Yeah.
it.
So
The
you can use that common one.
Thanks, Deb. That's
That you have to at least
do that.
them this. That's what I've understood.
I think that's a really good
That's what I
workaround.
understood too. You have to
That
have the
you use
minimum of
that
the PPA.
one that kind of appears and
Well,
or
yeah,
did
it
in
used to appear
UCA,
in
it showed you what your minimum.
It should still do
The
that
minimum
because
was.
you have the PPA and then you go to the adjusted page and adjust that
So
for
you can use the common.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lisa?
So what if you don't have any homeless and you haven't had any the past 2 years, then you still have to have money set aside in case you have homeless. How do you figure out what that allocation is?
Just the PPA. So whatever your per pupil allocation comes out to be, just stick that, say $268, okay? $268 is gonna go to homeless. And then if at the end of the school year, we still didn't have any students living in a homeless situation, that would go back into the.
So is it just one per pupil allocation?
Just one, just
So I don't have
PPA
it.
times one.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions that I can direct to Jeff Ojeda? All right, thanks for your help on figuring that out. We're in compliance with that. The next one is neglected and delinquent, and this one is tricky in Utah because you are required to set aside funds. However, Murray has a lot of neglected and delinquent federal dollars, Title 1D, that usually you don't have to use your Title I funds. And so if you know about this, if you are in contact with Murray, what's Murray's last name?
Murray,
Oh, yeah.
oh my God.
I thought it was two.
Mazzaros, that's it. I thought Murray.
You can contact him. The safest thing would be to set aside 1 times the PPA And if at the end of the school year, you haven't had a student living in a facility for neglected students, then you would pull those funds back into the Title I fund.
I do know because I can speak specifically in one area of the delinquent institutions, because we are in charge of the Weber County facility of the lockup junior jail, prison. And so the Title I is separate, Title 1D. We only do that, I check with my SPED to see if there's anyone in a community day program facility. And then I set asides for that. I don't set aside for the Weber County prison.
Because you know that's being funded.
That's already being
Everybody's
funded,
been taken
he's already
care of.
got his money for that.
Okay.
I don't have to do set aside for
Okay.
that. I just check if there's any other facilities.
Does special ed pay for?
It's called Malin's Peak, that's what it's called, sorry, but it's the facility.
Does special ed pay for kids in residential?
I just have to talk to I always ask my special ed director, is there anyone that I have to do a set aside for? And she'll check and she'll go, no, I don't have anyone in these facilities, so you're good. Your SPED rep will know exactly which ones to check and tell you.
So let's change that to not monitored. Let's assume that we're Ogden. Is that how you would answer it, JM?
Yeah.
Okay, not monitored. So I lied. There are 3 instances when you might use not monitored. Neglected would be one of those instances.
If I don't have any SPED or anything I'm done, I'm not monitored.
Okay, saving that, going on. Here's our CSI plan. You can read through these. It was developed in partnership with stakeholders. It's informed by subsection of ESSA. It's evidence-based. Remember the top 3 tiers, not all 4 tiers like Title I. It's based on a needs assessment, identifies resource inequities, and it's approved by the school improvement staff, Max and or Leslie.
Does this only apply to Title I CSIs?
She asked the question.
Oh, that's a really good question. Yes, because this is a Title I program. So if you're identified for CSI grad rate, let's not worry about that.
So
Unless
only
they're
if it's
Title I.
Title
Unless they're Title I school.
If they're a Title I school, yeah. But this was written with schools with the bottom 5% in mind.
For graduation.
Right. That's kind of a Max and Leslie are going to be monitoring that. Okay, and then we go on. We're going to get to TSI. There's a part of me that would like not to have these in here, but I told them that I would cover it. Okay, and here are those indicators for the TSI plan. It was developed with stakeholders. It's informed by all the indicators in that subsection of ESSA. It has evidence-based. It's approved by the LEA prior to implementation. So it's the LEA, not the SEA. And it's monitored by the LEA. Okay, so that's very general terms there.
Have schools outside of Title I that are
Oh,
TSI,
yeah.
so we all,
Yeah, you're just assuring that you'll do that, and I understand that's inconsistent with what I just answered Karen's
Except
question.
there is no money attached to
Right.
TSI, that's why it's not tied to title.
Might not see these indicators next year. Okay, moving on. I think we have our first upload. Nope, this is our parent-family engagement
There is-
set aside.
Right, and there is a requirement on there, and I have a question, I just want to clarify, because I read it very clearly, which I hadn't, for the last couple of years, I didn't realize. So the Title I parent engagement set aside, you have the 1% required district set aside, correct?
If you get over $500,000.
So I do, and then we have that, and then we have traditionally always had the schools from their allocation set aside a parent engagement from that, but I'm reading that and that's not the way it's to be done. I take the 1% and then give that to them above their allocation.
Right.
They are gonna be so happy, because that, to me, it always seemed like a double ding, and they're gonna be really happy.
Can I chime
So-
in?
I've done that.
We actually create a separate budget and we fund it per the school. So the school gets an account for Title I and an account for Title I parent involvement, that 1%. And that way we can ensure that they spend it all.
Well, that's a very good idea. I like that.
Say that again?
So we allocate to a school two different budgets, a Title I budget and a Title I parent engagement budget.
Do they all get the same budget?
No, it depends on their size and it depends on their poverty based on their PPA. They all get the same budget, PPA, not the same budget, but the same PPA for parent involvement because it's 1% off the top based on their size.
So your business office just gives it a different 4-digit unique account code. That's under title, but it's a different one than what your title is.
Yeah.
That's a very unique idea.
And that way I ensure that we spend that money because that money shouldn't carry over.
Yeah.
The rest of Title I could carry over, but that money's gotta.
Excellent idea, thank you.
Thanks, Mitch. One thing I wanted to mention, it's a minimum of 1%. Feel free to
Minimum.
set aside more than 1%. Artie?
We do the very same thing, and it has really helped our schools to really look at how they're spending that. We have our regular Title I is 7801. We have the two budgets too, and then our set aside for the parent engagement is 7802. So they are actually knowing how to spend that because you can spend that on food and other things where you can't do your 7801. So they know exactly where to draw from. So I think it's a good idea to have two things like that. Just for your info.
Thank you very much for that idea. Amy, can you talk a little bit about how you distribute Title I funds?
Sure.
It was you telling me this morning, right?
I don't think so, but maybe. Like we rank order the schools, and then we have 3 tiers. So we base the PPA based on the most at-risk schools, and then we have a line item for that budget, and then we have 30-minute budget meetings 3 times a year with each principal to review where they're at with those budgets. And sometimes they'll put more in the parent set aside because they want to have more engagement type of activities, but we always show them their minimum that they have to spend and can't carry over.
So it's more a site-based decision-making.
And we've just said that they can't carry over more than $30,000 a year. So that's just what we've said as a limit.
So who was I talking about this morning that said they had their school submit an LEA plan? I mean, a school plan for how they're going to use their parent-family set aside. You do that. Maybe it was Missy that was telling me that. I have lost it since this morning.
Well, it was the other Missy.
Yeah, the other Missy from Murray. Yes. Okay.
I'm the real Missy.
Well, actually, you're sitting right across from another Missy, so.
Are you?
Yeah, various Lisas, various Missies. Any other questions on parent-family engagement set aside? Moving on. I have a little warning, I don't know why I put it on this one and no other. If you're getting this question and your LEA receives less than $500,000, go back to the criteria questions and answer this no. Okay, here's the first upload. And I did this last year. Some of you saw it, some of you didn't. Upload required in capital letters, but also indicator number red on here, upload. People got better last year at uploading documents that were specific, that showed me specifically what the school talked about in their annual Title I meeting. I still got minutes from SCC meeting where 3 parents were included, and I was, no, that doesn't work. So it could be a separate standalone meeting. I think it works really well for some schools if they combine it with their back to school night, if they combine it with parent-teacher conferences at the beginning of the year. So I want to show you, since this is our upload, I've created a folder of uploads that are kind of pretend, but this one happens to be based on an actual school. So our annual Title I meeting, we go click on that. This is from Spring Creek in Provo School District. Oh, I just blanked on Michelle, thank you. Michelle creates a PowerPoint overview that she sends out to all the Title I schools, then they customize it. So she kind of supports them with the PowerPoint, but she doesn't tell them you have to do this. I loved some of the information that Spring Creek included because as we heard Cheryl talk about this morning, and Mitch and JM, the whole purpose of parent-family engagement is to not only engage, but to empower the parents. So what kind of information can you give parents at that beginning of the school meeting that helps them understand Title I, that helps them understand the needs of the school, and how Title I funds are going to address those needs? You can do it in a number of ways, but this is how Spring Creek has decided to. So let's go to the next page. So this is the overview. What is Title I? We have to have an annual meeting. She's going to give them some academic information. She's going to tell parents they have the right to know at that meeting. Okay, that can be delivered in multiple ways. Parent engagement, what it is, and then how communication with staff will look like at the school this year. Okay, let's go to a different page. So what is it? Boring. Let's try not to bore them with, but it's important. And yeah, next one. I would not suggest using your Title I annual meeting as a time to review your parent-family engagement policy. I think that's very extensive. That's a little too much, especially if you're trying to combine it with back-to-school night or parent-family engagement. If you're having a standalone meeting, this is what we're going to do. We would love as many parents to come and give us feedback on our compact that we just revised last year. Please come and help us out. But I wouldn't combine it with back-to-school night. That's too much. They could give input on the school improvement plan. But again, at the back-to-school night with this combined, it might be a little overwhelming. Okay, let's go to the next page. She's giving data. That's always empowering for parents to see. I would like to see a needs assessment up there. I'd like to see the goals and how the Title I funds are going to help accomplish those student goals. Okay, let's get out of that, all the way out of Adobe. And then we're going to go back to the DMI and we're going to upload this document. So to do that, we're going to go to the next tab. We're going to go, oh look, this even has a clue. Required 1. So it's like, oh yes, I do have to upload something here. So Renee's going to go to all documents. Scrolling down, she has this attached document link. She's going to click on that. And that's going to allow her to choose that file that we used to. Go to Title I. Oh, that's the notification. Oh, well, that one. Not that one, the top one. Okay, now that's uploaded. And it really helps Sandy and me when we're reviewing the DMI that you attach it to the item. If you just go upload it to the filing cabinet, then we're having to search through, in some cases, pages of documents to find it. So it really helps if you'll attach it right to that. Okay, so make sure to attach just like saved. And then our meeting requirements. Any questions while she's doing that about what meets requirements? You could include an agenda, but it can't just say back to school night, Title I. Meet with teachers, because I have no idea what was discussed in the Title I aspect or part of that. Okay, the next one is going to be private schools. We're going to spend some time on private schools. So, charters, hang on, and just be grateful you don't have to do this. Don't get it yet because Sandy or Tammy are going to be talking about some of the changes on the fiscal back of this. Okay, now this is a change has happened. Everybody that is a district is going to get this question. And you're going to have to upload something to it. where you haven't had to do this before. So annually, each district is required to notify officials of private, nonprofit, also referred to as non-public schools, that have children who reside in qualifying LEA attendance areas of their right to participate in Title I. So you need to upload a notification letter or the email, copy of the email that you sent out. For some, this is something you've always done. For others, it'll be the first time. If you are like Lisa in Sevier, they have one private school in Sevier district, but that private school is a high school, and their Title I schools are all elementary. So they would not, she does not have to notify that school because they don't have any students that are in the boundaries of the LEA, if that makes sense, right? Unlike, another example would be.
Do we just
Lori?
upload something that just says there are no schools in our area then?
Okay,
Is that what you were getting
Then
to?
this is for you. If after due diligence, searching, Googling, phone booking, whatever, the LEA does not locate any private nonprofit schools that have students residing in your Title I school areas, then mark this item as not monitored.
Okay.
We don't have to upload.
Right.
On that example you talked about in Sevier, if that is a private for-profit school, is that
Private
different?
for-profit will never qualify for equitable services. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, any other questions on?
Yeah, but private profit? is
Private
that-
nonprofit.
Nonprofit schools.
Most of them are just private. There are only a few, kind of residential, usually residential treatment.
Yeah, but like, we have a Catholic school,
Uh-huh.
that's, yeah, I know it's nonprofit because it's run by a church, but it's still, people have to pay to go there.
Right.
So
I mean, you
we
can
would
say.
be hurting to find a school that's nonprofit, that's private, correct?
Well,
Or
but
there-
there
There are
are-
a few residential.
Oh,
In
there's
Provo, there's
residential.
residential, yeah.
But they'll also file for a nonprofit status.
Right, you could always ask.
Oh,
you
just
can
ask
see
the
their
school.
nonprofit
But you,
That's
and
a
you
good
can go
idea.
on, you can go online and Google it and it'll show them what their status is.
Okay, thank you.
I want to show you some possible uploads then. So Steve doesn't have to worry about this because really Iron has no private schools yet.
Not elementary. They're
Oh,
not
okay.
nonprofit, no. We have private.
Yeah, you
for-profit.
do have a private school down there, it's a profit school. Okay, so I'm gonna ask Renee to go back to the upload folder. And I wanna show you one of our notification letters we sent out. We have 3 private schools in the USBE district. And so I sent this letter out. Notice the date, February 22nd. The date that I noticed most people send their notifications out, August 24th, September 1st. I was like, we know it's supposed to be done, but part of sending out notification is that private nonprofit schools have time to plan with you for the following school year. It should be right before school starts.
Okay, wait a minute, say that again. So the meeting that we're scheduling, the meeting that happened last year
Yes.
was for this current school year. So the meeting that we're scheduling sometime now is for the 2021 school year.
Well, the one that you're scheduling now really doesn't have to happen until maybe in the
Well, that's what I'm
winter.
saying, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But
So
the
we're a
one,
year behind on this.
did not know that.
Thank you, Tracy. So if you look at this year at a glance that I made, if you want to, you don't have to. It takes you through notifications. And where's the private nonprofit? Oh, no, that's on the back. It's the third one down in a blue box. It says February through March, so it just kind of gives you some suggested timelines.
Oh, I'm.
Consult with them, March, April. Okay, so if we scroll down, you scroll down, I actually gave each private school the opportunity to answer. Yes, we will participate in the consultation. No, we don't want to participate in the consultation. We don't want any services. Or we have questions, we wish to participate, but we can't attend the scheduled meeting. So that's just the third option. So basically there are two options, yes or no. And if they don't return the letter or if they don't get back to you, then that could also be, I mean, if you follow up, send them an email and say, are you sure? Did you get the letter? If they don't respond, then that would be considered a no after due diligence. So remember, private school number 1 said no. I'm not going to bore you with private school number 2. They said yes, we want to consult. Private school number 3 said yes, we want to consult. So remember that. 2 and 3 said yes, 1 said no. So we're going to get out of here, go back to DMI. I'm not going to show you those letters. And we're going to upload it. We'll just upload this one, we won't do the rest of them. Actually, we can upload letter 1, letter 2, and letter 3, all in that indicator. But for time's sake, we won't do that.
And again, attach.
Yes. Okay, let's go to our next one. This is where it gets even more fun. So you have private school 2 and private school 3 that said they wanted to come to the consultation. They both show up different times, and private school gets really excited. I go through the checklist with them and they say, yes, we want services. I talked to private school 3, they're like, no, we changed our minds, we don't want it. But you still consulted with them. 1 you didn't consult with, 2 and 3 you consulted with. Okay, so let's see, this is the checklist that is on the private school consultation checklist that Becky Donaldson created that's on the website. That's also in the resource tab. If you click resources, well, you can also see that's equitable checklist. Keep scrolling. It's right here for you to download if you want. But you don't have to click that. So I'm going to upload. I actually want to show them the document first. Then I want to go private school table 1 signatures, because this is all I have to do for private school 1 that didn't consult and private school 2 that consulted but decided not to get services. So right here I have the top part. This is all fillable if you want to do it electronically, but you don't have to do it electronically. I went against the instructions here. It says do one of the following. I found it was easy to lump school 1 and school 2 together. School 3. If there are no private schools interested in receiving equitable services, upload a copy. If schools are interested in ESSA services but choose not to participate in meaningful consultation, then we'll do that. Well, I'm going to show you an example of those 2. So this is table 1. Scroll down just a little bit. And then I fill out this private school 1, 2, and 3. That's all of them. I sent registered letters and followed up by an email. Private school 1 declined to participate. Private school 3 participated in consultation but decided not to take the services. And private school 2 said yes to consultation and services. So scroll down all the way. There's a last page you need to include too. It's a signatures page. Right here, I put my signature on twice just because I didn't have somebody else. This is where they agree that timely and meaningful consultation occurred. That's why you want to send it out in the winter and consult in the springtime. And then we need that signature page uploaded with table 1. If you want to create your own document, you can, But as I told some people last year, you need to make sure everything on that checklist is included. Remember, if you're consulting with Title II, with SPED, any other at the same time, because that's a really nice thing to do, Title I is slightly different, so you need to make sure you get all of the requirements from Title I in there. Again, in that resource tab, you'll be able to find that. So we're going to, you understand, this would be attached to that item, and so would Private School 2's consultation, where we filled out the entire checklist. We go through and we create a plan. So it would look slightly different for Private School 2, who consulted and is going to accept services. Will you scroll up just one page? This is the math page, or no, one more, sorry. If you want to use this to calculate, to show the private school how much funding they qualify, because sometimes when they see it and they're like, that's not going to get us very much, is it? Then they choose not to, because it is a hassle, it is some paperwork that they have to do. So this is just kind of for your use to show them if you want to use it. Okay, any questions on private schools? Thank you for those of you who don't have private schools. Yeah.
Documentation, do we need to require from the private school to ascertain that the kids really are qualifying free and reduced?
Dan, you have another
answer to that
answer?
one. It's not that the kids have to qualify, it's if their school is a Title I school, they're automatically, if their homeschool that they should have been attending is a Title I school, they're automatically eligible. Just for being there. Being living in that boundaries, like all of our schools except for one all of our elementary schools except for one are title. So
but yours are all school-wide.
Yeah, for all school-wide. If they're targeted, then they'd have to go through the same process that you would in your school for free and reduced lunch, which you would get from the that they fill out that lunch form. But yeah, if it's school-wide, as long as they live in the boundaries, they get it. They get to count towards that.
I know charter schools have a form that's easy to fill out for income verification. So if private schools don't have that free and reduced capability of figuring that out, then they could use that method as well. But there are, for targeted assistance school areas, that would be one way, and that's on the private school to show that.
They fill it out, do they keep those records, or do I have to keep those records that those kids are indeed eligible?
That I don't know, but I can find out.
One of the things that we've been looking at is that you need to figure out which school that student is coming from. And whatever you allocate in your grant application for that school per student, that's what you have to hold per student that came from that school. That's why on that list for UCA, which most people never used, is that there is a space to put how many students from that school are in a private school. And that will help you notice what the allocation needs to be for that student. But once they get there, it's like any school-wide program. Just because they're in that Title I school area, the people that are served are still in the lowest percentage of work, whatever. You know, it works the same way with school-wide schools. Just because they're a Title I student because of low income doesn't mean they have to be served or can't be served. It's whoever needs it. So the same thing would happen in the private school.
Okay, 2 clarifications. Equitable services comes off the top of everything. So it's not going to be dependent on the school allocations.
Yeah, it does. That's what it says. That you have to figure out what you are allocating per student for the school that they are coming from.
Makes sense, but I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So it's not that minimum per pupil.
No, it's whatever you're
All the way
allocating
to the
for their
school.
home school.
And even if that private school's in the area, if there are not any students that are attending that school from a Title I school, then
Then you don't have to
we're
worry
done.
about it. No, it's only for those students that come from a Title I school area. The other thing that you ought to think about when you're doing your consultation is that this private school thing works for all title programs. So if you're getting Title II money, Title III money, Title IV money, that also applies. And they can request help in those areas too. So you might want to keep that in mind when you have that consultation.
If they contact you at any point during the year, how soon do you have to respond with services?
Well,
or
basically, it's the first of the years when you set aside money. So if they haven't contacted you or haven't responded to your request for information, then they'll have to wait till the next year.
That's why it's good in your letters to have the deadlines that they need to respond, that you're gonna consult, and have that all laid out. You know, we need to
We've
consult
already done our
by-
budgets.
Yeah.
Keep your notices that you.
The other clarification I wanted to make is that any private school that accepts services is considered a targeted assist. They cannot be a school-wide school, even if they have half their school from your boundaries. They have to serve.
It's always
only
targeted
assist.
Only those kids.
Well, no, not only those kids. The school has, the private school has to use the services as a targeted assist school. Oh, only the identified students. I thought you meant the students from the LEA coming in.
No.
Okay, sorry.
Only identified students.
Yeah, the other thing you have to remember and make sure that the private school knows is they don't get the money.
Right.
All they get is services.
That's why the consultation is so important, so you can plan out what they need. Okay, I'm really ready to hand it over to Tammy and Sandy, unless there are any other questions. The
Val?
contact information at the bottom is there. I specifically
She loves it.
noted that you can ask me questions about cycle 4. You can ask me questions about the ones that I've done, although obviously I can't answer them all yet. And then Tammy and Sandy are the ones that are over the fiscal. So the ones that's, looks like just Sandy's gonna go over, you can contact her. Lisa.
I just wanted to publicly tell you thank you, because you have been so wonderful to help our school personally, and me not understanding, and so kind when I do something wrong. You're always very kind in your response. Oh, I love your effort, but I can't tell you how nice that is, because, man, we're just trying to do our best, and so I really, really, really appreciate your kindness and your pleasant way of saying you did this wrong. Please try again. So thank you very much. I agree with that.
I'm still learning, so thank you for your patience, and thank you, Renee, for driving this. And let's see if there's a submit button after Sandy gets done with the rest of the indicators.
Okay, maintenance of effort. That's something that we figure out here at the office. If you did not make maintenance of effort, we're gonna send you a letter saying, oops, you didn't make it. Will you please check the numbers that we have to make sure they're accurate? So we'll send you a copy of the spreadsheet for your school. You double check it. If you have a question about it or a problem with it, let us know, because I know sometimes things get put in the wrong place when you send that information in. So all the information that we use is information that you send to the data warehouse. Okay, and sometimes if you've got a new BA or something, they may put something in the wrong spot. We found that happened a lot in the past years, that they've just put an amount in the wrong position, which threw your maintenance of effort clear off base. So they called, we talked about it, we figured out what they did wrong and fixed it. So that's why when we get it, we'll send you the information that says, you didn't make it, and here's what you have to do. So if you don't make it on this one, you say you didn't do it, and you give us a little bit of a snippet that says, here's what my corrective action is going to be. Just so that we know and we can approve it and then look at it and make sure that you do it the next year. Now, the thing that's changed about maintenance of effort is it used to be they gave it every year, we'd delete money, whatever. Now, with the new ESSA program, it's 5 years that we have to look at. So if you didn't make it for, let's say, this last year, and you didn't have any other time during that 5-year span that you didn't make it, then you're okay for a year. But if you make it any 2 times during that 5-year span, then we'll deduct money from your allocation because of that. Now with Title I, you get a 90% right or wrong. So you have to be within 90% of what you did last year in order to pass the maintenance of effort. And I know with IDA, they have a different formula, and it requires 100% match in what they're looking at. So we're a little bit different. Our maintenance of effort works for Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and Title VI. So just kind of be aware that if you're low for Title I, you're low for those other ones also. Okay? And we'll send you the information that says this is approximately what you'll lose if unless you disagree and we can fix it. Okay? Questions? Yes.
Sandra, when will we be getting that report time frame?
It usually comes in January.
Oh, okay.
So don't hold your breath.
So what do we mark on here?
On this one for now, we're looking at maintenance of effort on this one is last year.
So if we were okay last year, just mark it again.
If you were okay last year, then you're okay now. So maintenance of effort is always 1 year behind.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? No? Okay, maintenance of effort looks at cost of curriculum, and it looks at student-teacher ratios. Okay, number 44. This is the crazy one. All right, so number 1, if you are a district that only has one building, one school, you're not a charter school that has 3 or 4 buildings out there, but you have one school, you don't have to answer this question. If you've marked your criteria questions correctly, then it will not show up in your list. So make sure you answer the criteria questions correctly. All right, number 2.
Sandy, it still might show up because it says, are you a district, not a charter? And it doesn't have any way to say, do you only have one building? So if that was Lisa over there, I don't know who that was.
I think there's 3 questions. Are you a district, not a charter? Are you a charter with more than one school? Or are you a charter with only one school?
Right, but if South
I'm a district with
South
only one
Summit
school.
only has one school, there's no way that's not gonna populate on there.
That's true.
So mine pops up, so do we
Now, wait a
say,
minute. I'm not talking about one Title I school. I'm talking about one school.
so a district with one school only?
One school only. That means that one school goes K-12. It doesn't mean that you have one Title I school. It means that you have one building, one school, no other building that serves students in the district.
I take back my woohoo.
You may still be okay. So, number 2, if you are a district whose every single school in that district is Title I, this will still show up, but you put not monitored. Okay? So if every school in your district is Title I, then this becomes a not monitored thing. All right? The third caveat is if you're a district that only has one school for each grade, so like one school that's K-6, one school that's 7-9, one school that's 10-12. you only have one school for each breakdown of grades, then this one again is not monitored. You don't have to do this one. Okay? Does that make sense? Question? So those three things, you don't have to do this one. All right. For everybody else,
She had a question.
most of you, what?
She had a question.
You have a question?
We are a charter school with one building, and I'm sure I answered the criteria questions correctly in that.
It shouldn't come up if you answered your criteria question correctly.
I might have fixed one thing and broken another.
It doesn't come up for me.
It doesn't come up.
It doesn't come up for me either.
So check your criteria questions to see if you answered that one right, because it shouldn't come up if you've answered that one correctly. Okay, so those of you that still have to do this one, most of you already gave me your basic thing last year and it's been approved. What you have to include this year is if you maintain any funds at the district level, how is that divided up? How is that used? So if any of the funds for Title I are maintained at your district level, how are they spent? That's what has to be included this year. So just kind of be aware of that one. That's a new little thing.
And not accounting for like your set-asides, you wouldn't, do we need to report those?
No, not your set-asides.
Anything additional to your set-aside?
This is additional. If you keep, let's say that you keep money at your district office for special, I don't know, special program or special training or pre-K.
Pre-K could be.
You know, so if you're holding that money there, it needs to be said, this is what we're using it for.
Okay. And do we do that in the comments, or do we write something out?
You should be able to just show it that you're using, how you're
Show
using
it,
it.
okay. So that's in addition to required set-asides?
Yes.
Yes, required, thank you.
Yes. Over and above what's required. Okay, questions on that one? One becomes a little tricky every year when we look at it, so if you have any questions, be sure to let us know. Okay. 5. All right, comparability report. We have changed the comparability report, so hopefully it's easier to fill out. Go down, will it pop up?
It should.
Resources, yes.
Yeah, pop up in resources.
Got to click the resources tab, though.
Tab, yeah. Yeah. Made this kind of a fillable PDF. Okay, so it's a little simpler, and we did the same thing for charter schools on the one page that you have to do for single schools. So this one is just multiples. So a lot of people in the old one just totally left this blank. We have to go back and say, okay, who was this? Who did this? You didn't fill out page 1. So now we've made it so you have to go in here and actually do that. And then we ask the questions that we have to ask. Do you have a salary schedule? Do you have a written policy to ensure equivalence? Do you have a written policy for curriculum materials? Do you have a board adapted for comparability requirements? And do you have procedures for meeting comparability? Those last two are kind of new with ESSA. So you have to have a written policy. We're going to start looking for those. A written policy about comparability. How are you doing it? What's your policy? What's your procedures? Okay, so those are something that we'll start looking for.
When you say policy, you mean written policy run through
Written
the
policy
board?
and procedure
So
for ensuring
policy
comparability.
through the board approved policy
Yep.
or, okay.
board approved. Okay? But again, if you are one school, one building, this is not the comparability report that you do. It's a different one. This report is only for those that have multiple. Okay? So remember the simple one-pager for one school charters? That's still the same. It's still basically the same.
So do we upload those, proof of those documents?
Yeah,
Proof of that
I think that's
policy?
what the number
Right now, you just tell us yes or no, and we will look at them on site.
So we have to fill out that. It's only one.
It's one page.
Yeah.
And it's not part of our building. But you still have this one that comes up, is that right?
You still have the first three questions.
Because you usually.
Okay, I was like panicking a little bit.
And some of them, with charter schools, a lot of those are not applicable.
Yeah.
So you can do an NA in there even though it says yes or no. Okay? All right, so these are the signatures, dates, so on, and they must be dated because this is a mandatory report for the feds every year. So it has to be dated in the current fiscal year. Okay, let's go to page 4B.
Want to go over the choices they have? Those choices are in the body of the DMI the context, the text, I mean. Go up to,
Not yet.
you know, they can choose whether they want to do one way, then they need to
Yeah,
fill
I
out
know, but that's
forms.
not here yet. It's in forms C, D, and E.
Right, they have two choices of which forms they
Yeah,
fill out.
right.
And that's actually in the yellow area. When you look at the indicator 45, you can see, do I want to do choice A or do I want to do choice B? And then based on that choice, we'll tell you which forms you need to fill out.
Okay, so this form is pretty much like the one that you had before. Okay, so you list the grade span of your schools. You tell us whether they're large or small. Don't go up. Okay, and then you list your non-Title I schools and your Title I schools, and you must list all of them. Okay? All of them. All your high schools, all your junior highs, all your middle schools, all of your. So this shows, on this page, shows every school in your district. Okay? So that's where this thing comes in. And you decide if you want to call them smaller or larger. You can leave them all the same, but that's your choice. Okay? But remember that the more choices you have here, the more forms you're going to have to fill out. So just kind of be aware of that. Right? So again, at the first of this, you got to put your LEA in there. Who are we talking about? So if we got to print this off and just have a page sitting there, we know who we're looking at. Because we can also take this page back to your grant application and look at your eligibility page and know exactly how many schools you have and whether or not you put all your schools in there. Okay? Okay. Form C. Okay. Comparability has two ways that you can do it. You can do it by student-teacher ratio and curriculum materials, or you can do it by cost of teachers and curriculum material. Okay? So you always have to do curriculum material, but how you do teachers is two different ways, and it depends on how you want to do it. The majority of schools or districts use the teacher-student ratio rather than salaries per student. Okay? It just seems to be sort of easier. So this first one then just talks about you list your school by name, what the grade span is, what the enrollment is, and what your staff FTE is. Okay, how many staff have you got working with these? And then this will automatically give you a ratio. Okay? It's designed to automatically calculate that ratio for you. And then at the end, when you go down to the bottom, not quite that far, not up that far, back up just a little bit. It'll give you a total and an average. Okay, now this first one is non-Title I schools. So this average then multiplied by 1.1% or 110% then is the number that your Title I schools have to be equal to or less than. Okay? So if we times this average by the 110%, whatever number this is in that position, is that in your Title I schools, that ratio has to be that number or less. It can't be more than that number. Okay? So this will automatically fill it out for you as you put the numbers in. Go down just a little bit more. All right, then you have the same thing for Title I schools. And then this will reach true or false if that ratio doesn't match that number. Okay, if it's less than that number, you're okay. If it's equal to that number, you're okay. But if it's larger than that number, it's going to come up and say, oops, you need to fix this. Okay? And we will send it back to you and say, this won't work, you've got to fix it. Now, it's also the case, these are limited spaces, and I know some of you have a lot more Title I schools than that. It will expand. Okay? You can add more rows to it. So as many as you need. It will automatically count your averages. It will automatically tell you if you're okay with that school or if you have to make changes. Okay, that's the teacher ratio one. Now,
What is the definition of total instructional staff? Because I know there's some criteria of who doesn't make the cut and who does.
that means teachers and paras.
It's both teachers and paras.
Teachers
It doesn't
and
count.
paras?
Does it count instructional coaches, counselors, or just teachers
Teachers and paras.
Just teachers and paras. Okay, thank you.
6 paras is 1 teacher.
But
It's 6 paras, 1 teacher. We still doing that.
yeah, 6 paras to 1 teacher. Others? Okay, go to D. All right, this is the one for instructional materials and supplies. Everybody has to do this one. Okay? Whether you do Form C or Form E, you have to do D. Okay? That's mandatory. And again, so first part is non-Title I schools, and again the grade span, and again the enrollment, and what you have paid in non-federal funds for curriculum and supplies. What do you give that school for their curriculum and their supplies out of state and local money only? Okay. Comparability is about all schools getting their fair share of state and local funds. That's where this one comes in. Okay? So this is only state and local funds. No federal funds should be included in this. Right? So then this will figure out the average per student. That average is then times 90%. And Title I schools then have to have that much money per student or more. Okay? So you do the same thing down here for Title I students, and then it'll say, is this true or false? Did you do it? Didn't you do it? And if you didn't do it, then you've got to tell me what kind of corrective action are you going to do to make it right? Fix it.
Sandy, is this in the resources?
But yeah,
Mine only has one, it's not there.
it should be. We'll go look. All right, then Form E, for those of you that want to use that, is the one where you do teacher salary ratios. So it's still the number of students, only now you're gonna put in, how much money are you spending on your staff? And then it's the cost of that per student that we look at. And again, it's still 90% in this case, instead of the 110 that you get with the teacher ratio. Okay. Now, in the 8 years, 9 years, 10 years or so that I've been working in Title I, I've only ever seen this done once out of all that time. Most people do teacher ratios and curriculum material. It seems to be the easiest, the least confusing, because again, you're looking at state and local money only. Questions?
Yes.
No, yes, maybe?
We're gonna choose,
It seems like the same information, just a different form.
Just a different
Okay.
form.
Gonna
And
choose what you
the nice thing, we had tried to design this, so once you put in the numbers, it fills it out for you. And you don't have to calculate.
one way or the other.
I did pull down the single side document and it's not currently fillable.
Final form.
And so I tried to type on it, it's not saving it, maybe it's just my computer.
We'll just double check that, make sure it is.
All right.
But I thought we made it fillable.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
If not, you're gonna have to download it and then upload it back again.
Right, but it won't, when I download it, I can't type on it, it won't let me type on it, but maybe it's a problem on my computer.
She's having the same
I don't
problem.
know.
It's there, but
Okay.
it's not
It's
downloaded.
not
So try it tomorrow, and if there's a problem, call us, and then
Okay.
we'll have.
We'll go in and look at it again
Yeah.
next week.
Thank you.
If it
Yeah,
doesn't.
you're welcome.
Any questions? Okay, next one. No, go
So-
to the next item. Yeah, but we
Fiscal
have
year,
the-
October 1 of the current year is what we had last year. And
Oh.
for this year,
Of your students?
yeah.
But thank you for doing that, because
last
the
year's
old
number.
form was just awful.
I know.
We had to just create our own boxes and our own forms,
It
so
was
thank
nice.
you. That was much
Okay.
nicer.
All right, time and effort documents. You guys make me crazy sometimes. All I want is a blank document that shows me everything that you're going to collect. That's all I want to know. You don't have to have signed ones. If they're signed, then I've got to make sure that everything's correct. But if you give me a blank one, then all I have to look at is, do you have a space for everything that I need to have? Do you have a place for the name? Do you have a place for the job description? Do you have a place for telling me what school they're at? Do you have a place that tells me what the certification period is? Do you have something that shows me either how many hours they're working and what percentage of those hours are Title I, Title II, Title III, IDA, general funds, whatever it is, just so it shows 100% of their time and effort. Okay? Now, this first one, number 46, is only for those employees that work on multiple cost objectives. Okay? Multiple. That means they do Title I and General Fund, or Title I and IDA. Okay? More than one. This one needs to be signed and dated by both the supervisor and the employee, and they must be signed after the fact. So if I get one in that is signed on the 15th of September, and this is supposed to go to September 30th, then any expenses for that person cannot be charged to Title I on September 15th to September 30th. Okay? So be aware that this has to be signed the last day of the certification period or after. It cannot be signed before. So let's say that in December, you're actually going to close school on the 20th of December. Then your certification period only needs to go to the 20th of December So you can get people to sign it before they go away for the holiday, or they have to sign it after they get back if you want to go to the 31st. Okay, so the certification tells us what days this person's going to work.
They
Now-
could sign that January 10th.
Yeah, as long as it's after the last day of the certification period. And remember, that must include month, days, and year. Has to have all three. Okay? All right, so multiple listings have to be done monthly. Okay? Every month they have to be done. Now, the only caveat with that is if they're on a fixed schedule for a certain period of time. Let's say that your school operates on quarters. So for every quarter, they have a fixed schedule. So every week, they're doing the same thing on each of those days. So that means that if I came into your school on one of those days, at that particular time, I should be able to find that person. Okay? So if they have a fixed schedule for whatever time period, so let's say it goes from August 20th to December 20th. That's their fixed schedule. They only need to do it one time in that time frame, as long as you attach their fixed schedule. It must be attached, or it's not acceptable for reimbursement. Okay? So be aware of that. The most you can go is 6 months. You cannot go longer than 6 months. Question?
So with minimal funds, I've got a person that is doing all my work in ESL Title III. But realistically, if I'm school-wide, I attach my funds to another person doing a math. Is there any benefit splitting it up so I show that my Title III ESL is actually doing this on the DMI? Or is it just convenience for me to do it with all the funds going to one person?
Doesn't
Not
matter.
worry about splitting. It doesn't
You
matter?
can split, as long as you do the right form.
That's what I'm saying. I haven't done the right form in 11 years, Sandy. I'm not just.
So 46 is for multiple objectives, okay? All right. The next one, 47, is for those people that are working 100% for Title I. They're not getting money any other place. Their whole paycheck is from Title I. Okay, that's this one. They only have to do it once every 6 months. Again, you must put in the dates of certification, okay, and it cannot be longer than 6 months. So a lot of them this last time that came in were a whole year. That's not acceptable. Okay, it has to be every 6 months, that's the minimum.
So Sandy, for this, do we use one from last year? Since we won't have 6 months by December?
If it was approved last year, again, blank ones though.
Right. Oh, yeah, it's just a blank one, it'll just have
Just
the
a
date.
blank one.
That's
Just
right.
Tell me what
That's
you're
right.
doing.
Okay, that's
Okay,
it.
and again, name,
Okay.
job description, school, certification period, and then you only have to say a statement that says, I certify that 100% of my time and effort is in approved Title I services. Okay? Then you can have one page with 50 names on it if they're all at the same school. Okay? So, their name, their signature, the date, and then their supervisor signs it once. Yes?
So it's a blank, so you don't want anybody's names on it or name of the
Anybody's
school?
names on it, I just want the blank form saying, this is what we promise to use.
Okay, so we could take your example, fill in the date for 6 months.
No, just
Blank
blank document.
You mean blank.
Blank document is all I want. All I want to do is to make sure that you have all the spaces for all of the information that I require.
It's just for format.
Yeah.
Sandra, why don't you just put one out on the website for us?
Because
they're in your resources.
Some people have their own. We do have one in the examples. There is one in there.
I'm just kidding.
But a lot of people have their own that they like, and they're perfectly welcome to use
I like
it.
yours.
Well,
Mine sent it to me.
but just make sure that you get it into.
So the only difference between the formats in 46 and 47 is that 46 needs a space for the employee signature and a place for the supervisor signature.
And
But
it
number
needs to
four-
show, that it needs to show all the programs they're working
Right, all the
in
programs.
and what percentage of their time, so it adds to 100.
And then number 47, because it could be because it's 100% out of that budget, it could be all the employees, that's why there's
At
not an
that
employee
school.
signature at that school.
At that school.
So that's why it's only the supervisor's signature.
So Sandy, say you have multiple budgets that they're coming out of, okay? On that.
Then you do 46 and not
We
47.
do 46, but say that they are a para that's here for this 1 hour.
Doesn't matter.
We don't have to put what hours and what ties to, I mean, I didn't know what
If they're doing-
hours tied to what budget.
If they're not doing it monthly, okay, then you have to have a fixed schedule. Okay? But if they're doing it every month, then you don't have to have a schedule attached. You just have to say, this many hours or this percentage of time is in this program, this percentage or this much time is spent in this program, so it shows 100% of their time and effort. Okay? Questions? And then remember, please tell your VAs this, that when they send in the documentation and I ask for time and effort, it better be on the form that I've approved in the DMI. If it's not, then I can't accept it, and therefore any money attributed to that is not allowable. Okay? I've been getting a whole bunch of those lately, and they are not allowable. Therefore, I can just say, I can't reimburse you anything, because these are not allowable. So kind of make sure that they're aware they better have the right form. Now, there are resources on both of these pages to give you an idea of some things that work. Okay? All right, the next one. Okay, property resources. Now you know that in your budget, if the property that you are purchasing or the equipment that you're purchasing is not $5,000 or more, you list it in materials and supplies. Okay? But you still have to have an inventory of it because you're purchasing that equipment or those materials with Title I funds. So there must be an inventory that we can be able to check and look to see if they're in their proper place. Okay? So the inventory should let you know what the property is, when you bought it, what you figure the lifespan is, excuse me, where it's located, and if you have an inventory number. Okay? Those things need to be on your inventory list. And you need to keep them on that inventory list until either the time runs out and they're no longer usable, or you're no longer using it. Once you're no longer using it, then it can go off the list. However, if you're selling it, you got to tell me what you sold it for, or if you moved it to another school, that has to be noted, where it is, what you did with it, those kinds of things. If you sell them, then that money has to be reported to the feds. So if you're selling equipment, get with me and I'll tell you what the guidelines are for that. Most people use it till they wear out and fall apart, so it doesn't usually matter, or they're just no longer viable. But if you are gonna sell a group of things, let me know and I'll tell you what the parameters are. Questions?
The number item?
Now, that one does not have to be attached to the DMI. That's something you maintain on site that we can look at when we come.
Anything. What was the price range on that?
Anything that you buy equipment that you expect to last more than a year. You do not have to do books. You do not have to do furniture. Okay? Calculators, Chromebooks, those kinds of things. Okay. Let's move to the next one. Okay, fiscal audits. All right, everybody has to have a fiscal audit. Some of you have to have a single audit. Okay, so question is, hopefully you had your audit, fiscal or single, depending. Remember, single audits are now up to $750,000 in federal funds, not Title I, but all federal funds. So if you're getting more than $750,000 in federal funds, regardless of program, then you need to do a single audit. If you have less than that, then you just have a general fiscal audit. And you just say yes or no, we had it. And again, that's one of the things that we will look at when we get on site.
Do you need the date of the audit?
No. Do you have it? Okay, and the last one. Okay, the other thing that we are looking at a lot more closely than we ever did is your policies and procedures. So remember that for every policy, you've got to have a procedure that shows how everybody's using it. And there are some new policies that have to go in there, so be aware of that. So that's, again, another thing that we'll look at. So essentially say, yes, we have a policy, or no, we don't. Okay?
Yes. So then note in the record that you're in the progress of writing one, or you're expecting to. Any of that.
Yeah. All right. Renee, will you go back to 47? Okay. In the DMI, anytime you see this, right here, this red sticker, that says you better have something attached. Okay? So just be aware, that's your clue that something has to be attached. Questions? I'm glad all of you got your cycle ones in. I saw the whole list of people that submitted. Good for you. Any questions, let me know. Tammy, me, Val, we'll be glad to answer them for you. Did she leave our phone numbers on? I'll give you all our phone numbers. Okay. But feel free to call. We actually answer our phones.
Sandy does a great job of that.
Anyway, let us know if you have any questions. We'll be glad to help. Yep. Val, do you have anything else you need to say?
Sandy, what's cycle one?
What's cycle one?
What's cycle one? You mean cycle four?
Cycle 4, sorry.
Oh, good, that's what we thought.
Whatever the cycle is, you guys will. I got a list about this long. Submitted. Val? Do you have anything else you need? Okay. If nothing else, you're free to go. Sure.
Right.
Okay.
Just remind me to talk to you.
Yeah.
Skills today.
Well, and I had to just read it recently.
And I'm like, this is nice. I was get my shit together.
Okay.
So what you're saying is gratitude is sharing this?
I can't do it tomorrow. Over the river and through the woods.
First.
I know. I'll do your
I can't remember.
Can I show
Those were house rent. What with the school we're doing, that's the only reason why we're doing it. So no like charters are gonna be in here.
I'll get to see it twice this week. I know, it'll be fun. Good luck with the ring show. A year ago.
Kids. Or whether we can keep them from taking those marks.
I hear that. No, I'm with you. I'm just like, sorry.
Thank you for being here.
Right. The next one is her response. So you can choose either one.
Oh.
You don't have to do both. One or the other.
And everybody has Form D? This is option 2. That's the one she said that. So I think we maybe, this is instructional. All we need is just option 1. And that's for students that are formed that we have.
Oh, this is 1 and 2. So, yeah.
Nice to see you again. You too.
Thank you
very much. And so the instructional is like ours. I'll see you every Friday, just tomorrow.
Right.
That's what we could put. Yeah.
As long as you don't go far.
And can I just change this?
Right.
Like this doesn't look like
This must be the cost.
Yeah, it'll, well, this is what,
Oh, probably the cost percentage.
yeah, and then it
Calculate it for you.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And ours will be.
So I'm working my way back over.
It should be, yeah.
So if you have any
Supply money that we
How it goes.
Yeah.
And that's all the comparability is.
Okay.
State funds.
It's not so that you can't say like, oh, we gave state.
I haven't, and I sent it to
So you're using teacher first, but they're well, one is multiple, one is multiple. And then we're just discussing that.
Did you get all that?
So when we go, she does track these kids right.
Oh.
Or you should.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of all that.
I am.
It's like they say a number and I'm going,
Sure.
now put that one.
And then here, so we just.
And when you sit back here, you really notice you need this less. I was trying to read the bottom of the tabs and I was going, I'm not sure, because I was trying to read off that and I couldn't.
This was helpful.
Good.
And then if there are questions, then maybe we can split the first part of the time with the next transpire.
September, the USB does. And if you don't hear anything in January, February, you're fine. We only have, it'll come right to your school. It'll say.
If you didn't have it, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're good for this year.
And there was only one school that was valid.
That we do our first round.
All right, yeah, I went into this.
Yeah, you're fine. You are so.
And the schools have to do well.
Yep.
I'm afraid if I remove
Uh-huh.
those tabs, it might be double damage.
We'll do it again next year.
I didn't even think to say.
And it is nicer, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Hi, Terry.
Yes.
Easy.
I didn't know your name, but I knew
So
you were
that
from
you don't have
APAC.
to send them back, you
They're
can
out.
just get them approved. But the Utah grants is,
Yeah, that's what's holding
that
us
is
up.
really going to be the problem.
And I'm worried about a crunch because
Yeah.
it doesn't get over until October.
I know. It's gonna be horrible. Yeah, I'm so worried about that part.
That's for special.
Yeah. It's gonna be scary if we don't get it fixed, and if we all have to do them on Excel spreadsheets.
That'll be a pain.
That's one of their options, if they can't get it fixed, they're going to Excel spreadsheets, and it's gonna be a. Yeah. It's going to be, so we hope they fix it.
Guess what you have more to spend now? Go ahead and do.
I use a certified teacher and submit it.
Yeah, I know, but I mean when they turn back.
Oh, yeah.
And then because then you guys can reject it. Oh, fix this. That's what I thought. My fallback will be I'll put as much as I
Just do it.
can, get it to you, and then you guys tell me what I need to do. Because if I don't do by that deadline, it's okay.
I know.
Oh, your money. In fact, I saw that quote. I think I was talking to Robin from Cash, and I think she made a call. She said, "Did you know that budget closed in Utah grants yesterday?" And I'm like, "What?" And so I pull up my computer.
We had like
I
the
forget that?
first 4 applications, and we tried to work it, it wouldn't. So we figured, why waste everybody's time?
Yes. So then I went and talked to, well, we got disconnected. I went and talked to my VA. I said, you know what, questions here fire now. I've got this closed and I missed the deadline. And he looked, he's like, yeah, it really closed. And about that time, Rob called me back and said, I just talked to him at SBE. They had to close it for a different reason.
Yeah,
I was like, how in the world?
Yeah, and we may end up extending the day.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Even if they were both due.
Cindy?
Monitoring and there's your page at the same time, because you'd have to have your UCA plan.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just reading this differently, but, so if I have, let's just give you an example. I have a social worker who's paid half out of Title I and half out of the business account. So I'm saying, yes, you have to work hard, but this is multiple cost objectives. And I think
More
objective
than
is
just the
the
students
last
that were
code,
helped.
if it's different programs, but the same
No, they
objective.
said, they said it was, we got that clarified from the feds, and they said no. If it's, even if they're doing the same.
Okay, so here's a question.
They're paid out of different funds, it's gonna show.
And I plan to do that, but I just didn't understand that, sorry, that multiple cost objectives.
Who she's servicing and working with.
Because it would be like 610 is for supplies, 131 is
The most recent.
so they don't have a different objective when you go to the budget code.
So she ends up.
They have the same objective, but it's the program number is different. But in broad speak, is that what they mean?
That's what they mean. That's it.
Because when the first one,
We're paying out of 7801.
In track it, but if they've gone there at least 3
yeah,
times,
you
then
know,
we start
we
to mark
said,
that as
when
well.
it says the
So that we
same
can kind of
cost
keep an eye on those
objective,
kids
does that
as far
mean
as how
if
they're
they're
doing.
So are
doing
you
two
saying
for
that
Title I,
criteria is for
IDA, they can count that as 100%.
pretty much?
No, they're getting paid
So
out
it's
of
really.
It's really
just the
programmed.
program.
And our people would
program.
be paid differently. They'd be doing
as opposed to.
51 and 50%,
Yeah,
whatever our
right.
special ed
So-
number is.
Yeah.
Those numbers are different.
Yes,
than-
yes.
So we're okay.
And that's why we do program accounting, because that's the number they're
Yep.
tracking.
Yep.
Always been used for PD.
Well, that's just-
So I could take this
It's
out.
also the case with ESSA, you can transfer all of your title to maybe their TA has, now they're going to the intervention
Over
specialist.
someone else's dead
Yeah.
body.
But if they're not getting paid on it.
Yeah, so I just, so can I put, whatever it is, Title I, and then they
So
would
I would
need to
explain
fill in what
that
the
and the
other
criteria
program is,
from
or
that.
do you want this
Because
fixed
that's
for
a
the
little
year
more
with their job
subjective-ish.
title?
I would say, let's
Not
fix
really,
it for the
but
year for
years.
each person.
For each person, okay.
Whatever
And
kind
then
of
I can
criteria
just
that you
list
can
whatever
show
those
students
programs are here, what their total, and then just twice a
maybe where
year,
they are
they have to do
now.
this? Okay.
I mean,
And
anything
then,
you can, I mean, how do you know?
for my own
That they need to be
sanity.
dated, that's
Yeah.
not dated, but,
Well, it
oh,
says
is it?
date.
Okay.
That's right.
But
That's what I thought, that's what I said,
That's your
that's
homework
That's,
assignment.
no,
Yeah.
exactly, that's why I'm
And
like,
then
and for
I'm
us,
gonna
it's
have
always
them-
a
Yeah.
puzzle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why.
So,
But-
so like a social worker's schedule,
And they have to
I'm sure
combine
y'all
how
would
many
do
days,
because everybody
community
talks about
time.
kids
Yeah.
all day
They
long.
have to combine
But
so
it's
many
like
funds
the day of
actually.
school, they're
And we
doing
were
that
talking,
job
it's
a couple
only
days.
$5,000, and she's a master's teacher.
So what do you
I
want?
know, but this is such a small size.
So,
She,
on
she would, we
Wednesday
pull
at
like
10
four
o'clock,
funds
it's like,
because.
I should be able to look at
Yeah,
their
as
fixed
opposed to,
schedule.
but she.
Same-
So
same
that
hoops
place
to
is
jump.
supposed to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
at 10
yeah.
o'clock.
It's not based on dollar amounts,
If they're
No,
like doing,
exactly.
so
Which
they
is,
have to do it
I'm like,
monthly.
okay, it's, you know, we're too small to let any money go, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they'll start to do emergencies, or they'll, do
Which is good, like I
course,
said,
preventive
Fixed
teaching.
schedule means that.
Like an aide, like an aide. Oh, that's too bad.
Or if
No.
they were only gonna go to that same school every Tuesday.
Well,
But that doesn't have to do that kind of work either.
no, it doesn't. Okay, so that would be the same information. Or is it
free and
people
reduced
that are
lunch.
paid out of funds, they'll have to continue.
Then
to
we
do
have
it
the
too. Because there's no
Our,
telling what.
yeah, that is for in that area.
Okay,
That's
so
what should
fixed
be
schedule
compliant.
really means.
It's not like when you fix, it's not like, oh, something.
Go in and find them.
See what let's apply.
How have you, I'm gonna use the word marketed. How have you marketed?
Yeah, so I've
supporting
always, because we just scrapped to find money to pay people, break funds out of $1 million. So I just want to make sure I was doing it right, but it sounds like same job, that they would only have to do it twice a year.
That's kind of what we thought too.
Yeah.
And,
It's the first sign.
and that's what we told you
In here is where
last
you
year.
get stuff.
Okay, so I didn't make that up in
No,
my
you
head?
didn't make that up.
Oh,
But when we-
okay.
but when
I
we
don't feel
went
so
to
bad
DC
then.
But when we went to our DC
And then these
meeting,
ladies
we
are
asked
there
them
to help support,
specifically,
and all
they
these
said,
computers open.
no.
So they're not even identified as.
Every funding code
No,
has
so
to
it's
be.
not
There could
like.
be a number of
No,
things,
exactly,
which is
so
wonderful.
that's why I tried to
Wow,
set, then
okay. We can do that.
But
We can do it,
really
just
one
gotta
of
figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question I have, just to make sure I got this part right. You know how last year you helped us 100 times try and figure out for our district to do the new comparable report under ESSA? So as a matter of, as a matter of maybe training our business department, should we ask them to do that again? Or once you've seen it for last year, you don't need the actual number?
Oh, you're talking about the supplement, not the
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
No, that part, if it got approved last year, it's approved. The only section you need now is that part that is maintained at the district.
And we can.
Okay, and so we just create our own spreadsheet like we did last year and say what it's used for. Okay. And
Oh,
then
that's
what
why you
about
said
the,
16,000, yeah, I get registered.
Yeah, no, I didn't
So-
drop them 1 year.
There's
I
another
will
one. You guys ask a question.
Make a graph.
hog you up,
Actually, share it that way.
but,
Picture and say, hey,
This
our
was neat
Title
so
I
that I can
funds are.
learn
from what you're asking.
I didn't really believe when people were asking questions.
Like, okay,
Sure enough, you'll want,
I know.
sometimes it's easier to learn
Okay.
fresh than do the changes because,
That's a
you
good idea.
know,
That's, I hadn't thought of it just.
we old
think
dogs are
money
having a hard time
is
with
in
that.
the-
Talk about old dogs.
You guys have.
You and me, babe.
We're all proud to be old dogs over